So with the emergence of these new gaming platforms, this sort of begs the question of, are we always going to experience games the same way that we do now? You know, one of the most recent platforms that comes to mind is Google Stadia. It just released a few weeks ago, and I actually got into the beta back before it was not even called Stadia. It was called Project Stream. And I walked away from the beta sort of impressed, to be completely honest with you guys. I thought that the game looked pretty decently. There was some macro blocking going on, and especially when things got pretty hectic, but I didn't feel that the latency was honestly that bad. And for casual use, I would sit there and say, you know, this would make no difference to anyone who just wants to sort of be able to play games. They don't care how they get their games, or it's just something that, you know, they casually do off and on. And they, you know, latency, as long as it feels responsive to them, as long as it looks perceptibly responsive to them, they're probably not even going to care. And so you know, with that being said, Google Stadia just released a few weeks ago to a bunch of technical issues, and it's basically not doing well as a platform. But you know, another sort of platform that I'm really starting to pay attention to as a keen eye, and something that I'm actually extremely impressed by, is the mobile gaming platform. And I talked about this like years ago, back when I did a video. I think it was called "Can Mobile Gaming Ever Become a Hardcore Market?" And, you know, that was sort of a video where I was discussing the possibilities of us actually playing AAA level quality games on our cell phones. Now, like many of you, I actually, you know, don't really prefer to play any games on my phone. I'm not even a casual mobile player whatsoever. But I do tend to download some like really hyped up, you know, very, very popular games. You know, that there has to be a reason for me to try something out. And so I downloaded the Call of Duty mobile game on my phone back when that came out. And man, I was so impressed. Not only was I impressed because it played actually pretty well, even though it was a touchscreen, you know, only a game. I think they've added controller support back into the game now, but not only was I impressed with how the game played and everything like that, I was mostly impressed with just how it looked. And still to this day, I'm in complete shock whenever I see the game running on maximum graphics, you know, and I can only run the game on medium, you know, on my Nokia. But damn, you know, when you see that game running with very high or ultra graphics, it looks just as good as an Xbox 360 Call of Duty, if not an early gen PS4 and Xbox One Call of Duty. It's just like, it blows my mind that graphics have become so good, that these phones have become so powerful that we're able to basically deliver games like Call of Duty, at least the multiplayer experience of it. And, you know, they got Battle Royale in there too, which is also pretty impressive. But not only, you know, make it playable on a phone, but actually have it look and be compatible with what we were experiencing back on the Xbox 360 and PS3. And so this begs the question, are we always going to experience games the same way? Now, there's all this talk about how consoles are going to die off, and everyone thought that the PS4 and the Xbox One were going to be the last generation of consoles, and that, which is lunacy, of course, because we already have confirmation that, you know, the PS5 and the next box are going to be using 4K drives. They're going to output even at 8K, or we're not going to see any 8K gaming, of course, but we're going to see 4K Blu-ray players on these consoles, and there's going to be used larger format discs for these games. So we're already, you know, there's still going to be a presence of physical media into this generation. And now people are saying, okay, the generation after this upcoming generation is going to be the one that's digital only. And I've talked about this before, how, you know, I think a few weeks ago I did a video about how more people are starting to download games now. It's starting to become the majority, right? And you see a lot of people, you know, starting to get turned on to the idea of downloading their games. You know, even I, whereas before I would try and, even on my P, after this generation we're going to be going all digital, which is can install into the hard drive and have a case and everything. I've become much more inviting of these digital only games. And you know, when it comes to downloading a game, you know, if it's available on disc, I will always prefer to get it on there. But when it comes to my PC, it's like, you know, even the ones that they sell in stores these days actually don't have any disc in them. They're just codes. So it's like completely, no point. But going off track here, what I was meaning to talk about here is, are we always going to experience games the same way? And I always think that I think mobile is going to be where it's at, but not in the same capacity that we're doing it now. You see, right now, mobile is very detached from the home theater experience. And I sort of imagine a future where these two things sort of meet and interconnect with one another. And so what happens here is you essentially are able to play the game anywhere you want on a local device like your phone, right? And you're always going to, in the future, we're going to have, I'm sure there's going to be a 6G after 5G, connections, and they're probably going to make internet very available, worldwide. And we're seeing a lot of these streaming platforms, like Xbox has their xCloud, that I actually have the beta for. I could try it out. I just haven't done it yet. But they have the xCloud, which you can, play Xbox games from your Xbox console to your phone and stream it over Wi-Fi. But the future, I imagine, is sort of, if we take a step back here, and right now the phones and the home theater experience is completely disconnected. Let's imagine these two things forming as one. So it's like you're waking up, right? Brand new games coming out. You go on the Google Play Store, the Apple Store, maybe you go on the PlayStation app and the Xbox app, whatever the case may be, where you get these games, right? And you scroll through the search of the new releases and you find the game, you click it, you're able to purchase it, and it downloads to your phone, okay? Once it downloads to your phone, you can then start the game from there, and you can play with the touchscreen controls. I'm sure there's going to be some way they're going to have to edit, at least make most of the controls available, but preferably you're going to have a Bluetooth controller that's going to be the same exact, like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation wireless controller. It's going to be Bluetooth, and it's going to connect with your phone. You're able to play games that way. Now, we already have this capability these days, to connect these games in this controller. PlayStation is doing this with any of their Sony devices. It's called Remote Play, and Xbox is just getting into this with their xCloud streaming service, which I just mentioned, right? And so the whole idea is you're able to play these games on any device, and it just connects with the controller, and is able to, it's essentially just acting as a screen for that game. And so that's what I imagine is, okay, here we're playing the game on our phone, and then whenever you want to sit down, you want to have that home theater experience, we're going to have a dock. So imagine something, very small. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have this dock here, and you're going to plug your phone on this dock, and each of your screens, right? You're going to have a computer monitor. It's going to have a dock that's plugged into it. The dock's separate, and it plugs into like the HDMI port. And you're going to have your computer. You're going to have your computer monitor with a dock plugged into it via HDMI, and you're going to have your TV with a dock plugged into it via HDMI. And you're going to sit there and you're going to plug your phone into it, right? As soon as you sit your phone down on the dock, whatever is on your phone screen, it basically transports to the display that you're plugging it into, right? And so let's say you're playing a AAA game on your phone. All of a sudden, okay, maybe you just got back from work or whatnot. You have the game paused, right? So you plug your phone into the dock, and then all of a sudden you have the home. Like, remember those old iPod docks, like the original iPod, right? Game that scales up for the resolution. It's on your nice 65-inch TV. It fully supports surround sound, and you're sitting there playing the same game, right? And maybe you have to go somewhere, and so, okay, pause the game. You take your phone out, and maybe you're on your way to a friend's house, or you're going, you have to go run some errands and whatnot, all right? But in between you waiting, you can still continue the game on your phone. And then on top of that, I mentioned the computer screen and whatnot. I really feel like, and we're seeing this already. Samsung has a version of this, but I heard it's quite terrible. Just, in my opinion, it just needs to be. They need to work on it a little bit more. But the concept in of itself is actually quite brilliant. And so you would plug your phone in on, let's say, to a computer monitor. It detects that, and all of a sudden you have basically a computer desktop version of Windows, or whatever Google software or micro. Like I said, Samsung has their own software where basically you can have this desktop like Windows software on computer screens, and again, it's supposed to not be that good, but imagine it working and being very well. Imagine Windows essentially, being an app, and you can get the full Windows experience, but instead of the computing being done on a big tower, it's going to be done on your smartphone. And I still, I don't want to sit here and talk about how computers are going to be replaced and everything like that through our phones. I don't think, there's always going to be a use for a nice, big, powerful computer, especially if you're doing a lot of computational tasks. But at the same time, I think, again, a lot of the casual audience just wants a simplified, one device for everything. And I know a few people these days who actually don't own computers. They just have smartphones. And when you really think about it, it's like, okay, smartphones have become so, they become so powerful and so capable that you can really sort of get by without having to use a computer for much of anything. The only time you really need to use a computer is, if I'm going to do video editing, like for example, I need a computer on this, right? But also if you're going to be typing out large documents, you don't want to use the touch screen, phone keyboard. You want an actual mechanical keyboard that you can touch and feel. And so, but only in those sort of situations. Just imagine, like, if you're just the type of person who, I just want to check up on Facebook and Twitter and watch some videos on YouTube, you don't really need a computer for that. Even TVs these days have built-in browsers with limited functionality where you can just go ahead and do that. And on your phones, we have all these apps that are super smooth. And so again, it's just sort of like, okay, let's scale this all down to just having one device that takes care of this. And, our phones are already as compact as they are. And when you really think about it, they're extremely powerful these days. I'm always surprised whenever I see these phones with like 8 gigabytes of RAM, because 8 gigabytes of RAM is what I put in my very first computer. And I was like, wow, like at the time, 8 gigabytes of RAM was like, oh yeah, that's like the standard, of what you would have. And these days it's like, ridiculously low. You wouldn't buy a computer with 8 gigabytes of RAM anymore. But on a phone, it's slowly starting to become a norm. It's not so surprising when you see a phone have 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM these days. And it just, when you think about that, the phones have gotten thinner. We're starting to get more aspect ratios. So now the phones are getting a little bit taller, but they're still compact devices. And again, when I saw Call of Duty Mobile running with ultra graphics, I was just like, this is literally the Xbox 360 or Xbox One, whatever Call of Duty. This is literally the console Call of Duty experience on my phone. And I was in complete shock, and still to this day, it's like so surprising for me, because you have to keep in mind that like I grew up in a time, where the iPhone wasn't out, like having the iPhone, when the iPhone came out, it was such a incredible, innovation, and no one's seen anything like it before. Right. And like these days, a 10-year-old kid has an iPod. A 10-year-old kid has an iPhone. It's like, it's not even like a luxury anymore. It's just expected. Oh yeah, you get a smartphone now for your first phone. I didn't get a smartphone until I was fucking like 15 years old. So some of you guys it's funny, you grew up with these completely different circumstances. And so I'm sort of looking at this and I'm just in complete shock, because the games that I used to play on my phone were these very kind of type of, crappy 2D side-scrolling games, games that would the graphics were like PS1 and 64 graphics, like that was oh great, we can do 3D stuff on a phone. That was the big thing. But it's amazing to me because the phone market is growing faster than the console market these days. We're getting the PS5 and next Xbox next year, which is going to be exciting, and I'm sure they're going to be fantastic. And from all the rumors that are coming out, they look to be extremely powerful machines, so it's probably going to increase that gap further. But here we are at the end of this generation, and when we have a Call of Duty game developed by a big budget studio coming out for mobile platforms only and looking comparable to the Call of Duty games that come out on the current gen systems, I mean, just imagine what another 5 years of someone who actually invests a lot of money into a mobile game is going to be able to pull off. It's literally the Call of Duty multiplayer experience. You got classic maps, the full maps that you would normally play on your Xbox 360 or PS3. Are completely, full in detail and exactly as they were on the Call of Duty mobile game. And then you got Battle Royale, which is an even larger scale map that they somehow are able to fit and manage and run well on a mobile platform. It's just really shocking to me. So I am a I am a forward thinker, and I do like to embrace technology, but I'm also a person I'm a person of habit. I like to get comfortable with everything. I don't really like change that much, but I'm keeping a keen eye on the mobile platform and seeing how it's going to evolve in the next 5 years, because I think there will be a time where someone is going to find a way to mold these devices together. And so we aren't going to go to a computer, and we aren't going to go to a game console, and we aren't going to go to our phones and a TV. We're just going to have one device that we carry on us at all times, and we can play these games on any screen with a dock. I'm sure in the future there's going to be some wireless connectivity options where maybe the latency or the delay isn't going to be as bad, but I think for the near future it's definitely possible to do something like, a dock where it's something that, okay, it's just a peripheral you plug into your existing screen, and then you're able to get all these extra features, and the phones detect it. It's like, okay, this is a computer monitor. Bloop, it puts up the Windows-esque software, and you're able to browse your computer like normal, but it's all through your phone. Or, this is a 65-inch beautiful HDR 4K TV. All right, let's output games. Let's streamline the software so it's nice and big with nice bold letters and lots of blocks so people can see easily, and it just dynamically shifts between these two different types of operating software. And I think it's gonna be quite interesting. It's exciting to think about, but it's also very interesting because it's like, okay, how drastically is just going to change our perception on nearly everything that we do, you know and thinking about these devices connecting with one another, it's gonna be quite, life changing. It's already amazing when you really think about it, how much cell phones have changed our lives. And I was born in an interesting time period where, cell phones, again, like smartphones weren't even a thing when I was a kid. It didn't until I was like really in middle school or just getting into high school. Like that's when, the iPhone was starting to come out, and people were starting to do crazy things with their phones. Back when I was a kid, like the most advanced that you can get in your pocket was a BlackBerry or one of those Palm PDAs. I remember that my dad had one of those PDAs, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But again, it's funny because that when you really think about it in a nutshell, that wasn't that long ago. And so I'm just thinking, okay, near future, the next 5 to 10 years, how much are cell phones going to change? And I think we're gonna come to a point where we're able to mold all these devices together so that we have one device that we sort of carry around. And it's not about owning a laptop anymore, and it's not about owning a game console anymore. It's just, okay, carry your phone. You have a dock, any screen, and any screen that has a dock you can just connect with, and all your saved data is carried with you locally around you, so you don't need to rely on, okay, gonna have to make sure everything's backed up to the cloud to access it on this screen, or whatever the case may be. So it's gonna be quite interesting. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any crazy ideas like that, feel free to share them. I think this will be an interesting open dialogue that we have, and really think about it. Like are you guys open to changing the ways that we play? There's VR, which is sort of an enhancement of an existing play style that we already have in the world. And I'm not, VR is exciting. I've played VR, I've experienced VR, and I thought, okay, this is pretty cool, but it's still basically a fad, I would say. It's not a complete colossal failure, but there's no reason for me, like I'm not drawn to get a VR headset right away. I'm more excited for augmented reality, to be completely honest with you, but that's just me. Anyway, let me know what you guys' thoughts are, and I will talk with you all later. Have a fantastic day. Thanks.